Questions. You know, this whole singing thing, it's a miracle that anybody learns how to do it. There's so many things to think about and coordinate. So any questions? Yes?
How do you feel, how has the Juilliard education benefited you professionally?
Oh. Did somebody ask you to ask me that question so I could say this sort of, streaming, live streamed? Well, I was very fortunate because I came here as postgraduate. So I wouldn't, even then, and it's much harder now, I don't think I could have had the training and the language and the experience and also the exposure that I had when I was here, which was incredibly crucial and very important. In the middle of it, I went to Germany and studied for a year, which was also very important, the Fulbright grant. I highly recommend that you study abroad, at least for a summer, and get a language. But I love Juilliard. It's fantastic. And you're in New York, walking, James Levine is back. Hello. We're so happy. But I was just saying that when I was a Juilliard student, I did standing room and saw all the Mozart operas with singers who were so unbelievable. And that's, what an education to have that here. It's fabulous.
When you were young, how did you keep your spirit alive for music when you were experiencing difficulties with auditions and getting roles after you left school?
Well, yeah, it's not easy. Well, music was never, I never mixed music in with the mix. I love music. So that was always there. I could appreciate it. It was a place to go, obviously when you're feeling very frustrated. And I had very eclectic taste, so I was listening to all kinds of things. But the audition, it's what I would advise you to do when you audition is to put aside the study. Keep three goals, things you want to try and accomplish. Don't make it more complicated than that because you'll get jumbled. And perform. And really live in that moment and express everything that you can with that piece. Because that's really, beyond your instrument and how you sing, which in that moment you can't really have very much effect on either of those things, other than, to obviously not be so nervous you can't sing. So you're what you're going to accomplish is to spark the imagination of the person you're singing for. So that's, all about where to look when you're auditioning. If you're doing something that's sort of an inner monologue, then you can move around. If you're doing something that is to someone, you don't want to stare down the judge, but you can look over his or her head. And I encourage a lot of change of focus if you can build it in to the piece. It's just more interesting. Yes?
I'd love to hear your ideas about how age or maturity affects your voice and the transformations that your voice goes through.
Oh, thank you. It is so important. I'm working with John Relier now in Rusalka, and in the first rehearsal, Dolores Ajik and I looked at each other and said, wow, his voice has really developed. And he's a mature bass. So your voice will continue to change for a long time, and your job is to sing as healthy and as young as you can. Do not try to sound like mature people or make a dark, full, rich sound. You want to make your best sound, a beautiful sound, and you want to work on color, language, expression, phrasing, style. But beyond that, allow yourself to mature slowly. There's some young stars now at the Met, and one of them I'm thinking of in particular she has a youthful sound. It's powerful and it's heroic, and people who don't know anything about singing are sort of saying, well, it's the color is this or that, and I say, great, let her develop naturally. Give her the time. That's what we need, and it will develop. You had a question back there, yes?
Yeah, I was very interested in what you were saying about the floating, especially about congo. I'm not a singer, I'm a coach, but I wondered if you could just say a little bit more about what floating is, how you do it, what you're looking for.
Right. Well, it's just one more manifestation of the color that you find in your in the registration of your voice. So if you use a voix mixte, for instance, in the bottom, that's another version of a color that you'll work with for expressive reasons. And floating, I think, frankly, which is basically having a lot of head voice in a tone, is something you should all be able to do if you can, because you'll use it consistently. And people who have access to that tend to also, you know, it helps with your longevity. It helps with your vocal health. If I mean, I had a master class a week long with Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, and she must have said 1,000 times, Kopfstimme, Kopfstimme, Kopfstimme. And so I finally started to find it, and I've found it a real lifesaver. And now when I vocalize, that's where I go to start. I start with that because that's the best bet of getting my voice in a healthy place. So, you know, but I'm fighting against it. You're already there. You're young and you're vigorous. So it's really terrific if you can develop that. Yes?
Do you ever have any problems or issues with nerves? And if so, what strategies do you employ to overcome them?
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with nerves. And in graduate school, I had auditioned for the Met competition and literally had a long, drawn out, it was Achifus, standing there, white-knuckled my way through it, and just kept thinking, if I crawl under the piano and walk up the stage, would that be okay? And by the end of it, my larynx was so tight and my breath was, So it takes a while to recuperate from that, because then your default position physically when you have to perform is fear. And then I had a really bad episode, which is, I wrote a chapter about it in The Inner Voice, but it's, you know, stage fright for me has been, and since then, about mental preparation. So everything I sing, and let me tell you, the Super Bowl was the scariest thing ever. For literally, and I knew it was going to be scary. And for 5 weeks before, I woke up at 4 a.m. every night going, night, no, it's fight. It's not night, it's fight, it's fight. And where's the rampart word? Where is the rampart word? Oh, God, it is so terrible. Because I saw it, that people are villainized if they make one mistake for life, and it never leaves you. Oh, you're the one. So it really is, the mental preparation piece is incredibly, I mean, you have to be, I also make sure everything I have to perform is memorized well in advance. I make sure that it's in my voice well in advance. So that's the way to guard against stage fright. And, you know, and it's always, and I also never have forgotten it. It lives with me. It's like right there. I can't do that role because I might have stage fright again. Do you know what I mean? So I make choices based on it. So, but we all have it, I think, to some degree.
How far in advance do you start working on a role before you have to perform it? Or how far in advance are you completely memorized and ready to go?
Well, for all of us, it's different. It depends on how quickly you learn, on how much you've taken on, you know. So I have had the bad habit of being a one-at-a-time person, which is, I wouldn't recommend, because sometimes you have no time and you've waited till you finish the last thing. So in a perfect world, you're preparing over a period. But I make sure that before I start rehearsals, I'm ready. And then, you know, life happens and you're juggling 1,000 things, but it's a lot of work. The language is the hardest thing. You know, foreign language, you've got to be prepared with what you have to do. You have to really have absorbed the translation, all the articulation, what everyone else is saying, and do your homework. It's just very time consuming. You know, it's not the most exciting thing to do, but it's worth it, because it will deepen your performance 1,000-fold. Because the more natural you are, my goal when I'm performing is to feel like I'm just talking to people. I'm just saying words to people that mean something to me. There's no singing involved. There's no craft involved anymore. It's expression. So when I'm really on my game, that's what it feels like.
I originally tried
Oh gosh, well, it depends on the project you're talking about. I mean, certainly there was a Broadway disc, which was natural for me because I grew up doing musicals in high school, and probably some of you did as well. And my parents taught, so. And jazz was my passion. I sang 2.5 years in a club when I was in undergraduate school and thought that that's what I would do. And the doors closed when I went to graduate school, so. So that was also, Haunted Heart was a very natural thing. The indie rock recording, Dark Hope, came out of left field. It was not my idea, and it was so weird. I said yes. It was just, and it was a really interesting opportunity to kind of learn about, I'm much more versed in the music that my children love, and I have a great appreciation for it. But I'm curious about singing, period. I love all singers. Different genre, different styles. It fascinates me, and it always has. Yes, Miles.
How do you go about picking roles or knowing when you're ready for a role in your career, or maybe if you need to wait 5 years, or that process?
YouTube is phenomenal because once you're familiar with the history of singing, and you should all be familiar with it, you should be reading about it, listening like mad, so you plug in that role, and when you see the voices who have sung it, and you don't really fit in with that fach, then you'll know, well, I better think about this. Or, of course, you ask your teacher, you ask coaches, you have to think, there are a lot of elements. It's not just the weight. It's not just the orchestration and the drama. Tessitura is hugely a crucial issue. Language. Are you going to even subconsciously be asked to give more, because that's how we rationalize. We say, well, I'll just sing it with my voice. But that never happens because your ear says, no, but you've heard someone else do it bigger, and so you got to be bigger too. So it's you have to be careful. That's not a mistake I made very often, and when I did, I immediately said, okay, I'm not doing that again. I just did too much repertoire when I was young, just constantly learning new things. So I think you have tools here. One of my tools was to go to the dramaturg at the Met and say, at the Met, who sang this role? And he would give me the list, and I would say, okay, definitely not for me. Because it depends on the house. There's a lot of repertoire that I could sing in a small European house that I would never sing at the Met, for instance.
Do you have any special routines to keep yourself vocally healthy?
Yeah, I live moderately. I stay away from noise now. I don't want to talk in a noisy restaurant, or I can no longer comfortably go after an operatic performance out, for instance, and I can't do it. I don't recuperate. So I also hydrate. I'm working more on speech, on how I speak. The vocal fry is something we do now because everyone does it, and it's not good. It's not a smart, it's not the best use. So much more modulation in the speaking voice, and so yeah, I have to think about it more now than I used to. But I still find that mind over matter is important. I do feel, that, knock on wood, I fly all the time. I'm just not. I try hard not to be neurotic about it, because then you can't live your life, and that's boring too.
Speaking of travel, as an international artist, how do you maintain an important, growing relationship with your family?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Having children and traveling, your family, your friends, this is the trade-off we make for doing this phenomenal thing. And that's a huge sacrifice. And it's also a sacrifice for them. So, because they don't have you all the time. So, my friends and I, this is what we talk about a lot. We have each other. We have a little, international opera club. And we all suffer to some degree from arrested development as a result, because we're just traveling around all the time and having fun together. So, there are wonderful things about it too. And it's really about what you want to do, how much you want to work. Most of us have no choice, right? If you get a job, you say thank you. But at a certain point, I had to start pulling back and making decisions about how much I would travel. In my case, it was to cut way back on opera and concertize more, which has been really good. And my two children, we're very close, and they are doing well. They're thriving. But it's interesting. My oldest daughter in particular has made very strong choices that are clearly the anti-mom's life. So, about knowing for a fact that whatever she does, she wants to be in, at home and be a sort of nurturing presence in her children's lives. After I pulled the knife out of my heart, I said, yes, honey, of course you do. But we're open, we have an open, loving dialogue to have that conversation. So, anything else? Yes.
When you're doing a role like Rusalka, where you have huge chunks of time where you don't sing or speak, what do you rely on to fill that time and find the expression in the character?
Oh, funny. You mean the Rusalka ballet, the mute second act? And oh my gosh. Really, opera, the problem we have in opera is that American houses in particular are just too big. And they were built at a time when they were built even for a more sort of municipal function. They had all kinds of events in opera houses. So this house was built, at the heyday of classical music, in this house, meaning the Met, in sort of late 50s, early 60s. We had Leonard Bernstein. We had all of these amazing artists. Karajan was still amazing. So now opera, and particularly because we have HD, opera doesn't really work that well in a big house anymore because people have an expectation to see us and see what's happening. But for most houses, your job when you're not singing, and even when you're singing, you have to physicalize your emotions. You have to find a way in your body to show the audience what you're feeling. And because if you're just feeling it like a film actor, no one will see it even 10 feet away from you because the lighting is always so dark. So forget the distance across the pit. I think some people have it naturally. Some people are amazing on stage and very natural. I had to really work at it. I was a much more introverted, shy person, and so I had to spend a lot of time learning how to externalize the character and feelings and things like that.
In addition to singing, would you recommend getting a second job?
Do you mean as a young professional? Well, I would recommend you thinking about a second job, you being prepared to have a second job so you're not driving a taxi for the rest of your life. So I definitely, there's a strong thinking now in education in general that especially given the reduction in the difficulty we're facing in sort of the arts in general, is that there's a community service piece that's incredibly useful and important. So if you start thinking about how can I contribute to the arts beyond, let's say my dream of being a professional singer doesn't come true by the time I'm 25 or 26 or 30. What else could I do so I maintain this love that I have and this passion for doing it in the first place? Or you'd say, I'm going to medical school. I'm going to do something different. But I would think about that. However, when you're really seriously trying to pursue this, if you can do it without working too much, it's obviously better because you need a lot of energy and time to learn the craft. I mean, I worked, but I had a great job when I was at Juilliard that allowed me flexibility. I could work the hours I wanted and when I wanted. It was pretty ideal. But that's difficult. It's very expensive, obviously, to live in New York, period. And most of us commute when we're students from the boroughs, and that's okay, too. Yes? Hello?
Hi. You're doing a play at Williams this summer.
Yes. Yes, I'm doing a play this summer, and it's sort of I'm expanding in a lot of different directions now to sort of find what else I can do. I've always been curious that way. And this will be an experiment. I mean, I asked specifically for us to have someplace else to try it out first, because if it's a disaster, then hopefully no one will come. And we'll see how it goes. It'll be something new. I'm playing an opera singer. I don't know why they thought of me, but it's crazy. Yes.
Any thoughts on how opera could become more accessible to the next generation of people who might not be so trained or appreciate it?
Well, how opera can become more accessible. I have, that's my most passionate pursuit right now. It is audience development. And because what's become clear is that it's not obvious that younger generations are going to be interested and forget about coming to the opera, supporting the opera. It's such an expensive art form worldwide, and as we lose audience, part of it, my biggest beef about it is that in 100 years we're still basically performing the same repertoire. So the only way to change it up is in new productions and star singers, and I think that's a shame. I mean, I wish we had somehow figured a way to have enough new works to keep the repertoire lively and evolving, and to keep the audience's interest. And for, that's another whole seminar, but for lots of reasons, we haven't achieved that. And new productions are only so successful. There are some great ones, but there are a lot that don't succeed. And we also, frankly, we don't have that many stars. For you all to become stars requires a fully thought out, well-rounded body of work, that there can't be any sort of weakness there. It's got to all be together. And on top of it, you have to have personality, charisma, and timbre. You have to have a really special, unique timbre. So that's a tall order. But there's work. There's a lot of work. It's not hopeless, but I think there's room for, it's a challenge. That's another thing you can contribute to. It's a huge challenge. Marketing's a big piece of it, how to create buzz, how to keep things lively. I think we should be, that's another whole conversation. Never mind. Thank you so much. I think we're done. Thank you.